Hi there, and welcome to the Low Carb Family Program. Today, we're going to be talking about Pantry 101 and practical approaches for you and your family. So, thank you all for joining today. Some things that we're going to take a look at in our discussion will be how to get started. When should I get started? Turning your crew around. Now, if you're a parent and you have some kids hanging around your house, that is a crew. So, we're going to talk about some ideas and ways to kind of get the idea through your family and turn those ideas and thoughts around with your family. So, turning your crew around is going to be talked about. Mental preparation. A lot of times we get excited and we just set to work right away, and we don't really think about the plans that need to be made. So, we really want to be sure that we're setting ourselves up for success and not just being mentally prepared, but physically prepared too for some changes. So, that's going to be looked at. Cleaning out the pantry obviously is the theme of our talk. So, we'll be talking about ways that our family went through the pantry and we're really decisive about the things that we would keep and the things that would go. Then we will go on to decisions, responsibilities, plans, and results. So that's kind of a little bit of what we're going to look at today. So, giving you just a little bit of backstory or a little bit of an idea as to who the low carb family are or is and where we have come from. So, as parents to seven, we had, well, our house isn't as busy now, but our house was a busy, busy household. So there was always activity going on, there was always some events happening, and of course, there was always a meal having to be prepared. So you can imagine that as our kids started to age and get confident in the kitchen, we started to teach our kids how to cook. It was really a survival tactic for my husband and I to have other hands in the kitchen who could carry some of that cooking load. So teaching them to cook was important. But what ended up happening, well, it didn't happen because we taught them to cook, but what we ended up having to tackle were things that were being introduced as um, easy foods to cook. So let's start here with identifying the weakest link. So it's not the weakest person in the house, 'cause that would be silly. But the weakest link might be something that you've held on to as a food in your kitchen to kind of get you through to, things that you just enjoy. And for us, our family, it was pancakes. So we've often joked about this at conferences at different times. We've shared this particular theme, this particular talk about the pantry is so teaching our kids to cook was fun, and we started with things that were simple, things like that you may have done with your own kids, scrambled eggs. That's an easy thing. Then maybe you move on to the grilled cheese sandwich, and then from there a few more ingredients to a different recipe, and now we're at the infamous pancakes. So it came to a head at our house where pancakes were really common, and so our youngest, they were the last ones to kind of go through these stages. And one day, when it became apparent that someone was always in the kitchen making pancakes, so it wasn't lunch, it wasn't breakfast, it wasn't supper time, and yet someone is in the kitchen making pancakes. So that that we identified as one of our weakest links. So for a time, probably a couple of years, we just banned and outlawed pancakes from our house because it was becoming too readily available. So maybe in your family, it could also be pancakes. It might be something else. It could be um, Coke. You could be pop drinkers. It could be bagels. It could be spaghetti. I don't know. But um, through the process of today, hopefully we'll help you identify some of those areas, and maybe you'll discover what your family or your weakest link is. So let's move on. So the things that we're going to, whoops, going the wrong way. So added to the pancakes, moving into other areas like our refrigerator, a lot of things are contained in the fridge because they'll spoil. And most foods that will spoil contain sugar. So, going to the refrigerator, we started to identify some things. Now, also, I should add to this part of our story the reason behind some of these ideas and why we even implemented these changes were a type 2 diabetes diagnosis for my husband in 2015, a surprise visit to an ER after a surgery. He had a minor surgery but developed a major infection. So we had to go to Emerge, and through some blood labs and tests, the doctor came back and said, "Wow, yeah, your diabetes is really out of control. We can fix this infection, but we really need to tackle this diabetic problem." And my husband was surprised and said, I don't have diabetes. You must have me mixed up with someone else. And they said, no, here's all the blood labs. And it was clear that there was a blood glucose problem for him. So that's for a different day, but he was able to tackle that through diet, and his doctor agreed to forego medication. So we needed to make some really quick decisions and really practical things that we needed to start implementing right away. And one of them was sugary beverages. So take a look in your refrigerator. You may be juice consumers or soda pop consumers, smoothies, iced sweetened coffees, all kinds of things you're going to find in there. So I don't recommend that everyone just go into the refrigerator and empty it and throw it all away. But for us, we needed to make some decisions about food and beverages kind of that day. And so we went at it more in a cold turkey kind of a way. So you may be able to identify some of these in your refrigerator and start weeding them out. But for us, we needed 100% starting over. So the sugary beverages and soda pops, they had to go. And I can tell you, both my husband and I were avid Coke Zero drinkers. Loved, loved, loved our Coke Zero. So that was a challenge, but we made the decision that it wasn't just a matter of wanting or willing it to happen. We needed these changes. So we were willing to commit to them. And in so doing, we replaced them. Now, what did we replace them with? Not Coke, not sugar, artificial sweetened beverages. We replaced them with mineral water, Perrier, natural flavored sparkling waters or carbonated waters. And so we just replaced them with that. Then we moved on to things like bagels and muffins. And for our house, these were kind of staple foods, and they might be for you as well if you have small children or, well, any kids, in fact. Bagels and muffins are great. This took some time. Now, even during COVID, muffins and bagels have found their way back into our home, but in moderation. So we needed to get rid of those types of things, along with snacks on the go. It's cookies, snack bars, potato chips, candies, hard candy, popsicles, ice cream, all of those types of things. We really had to put them into a category of extra. And if we were only going to focus on real foods at meal time, these snacks now they were extra and we needed to get rid of them. So, in order to start to implement some of these changes, we bypassed the cookie aisles and the bake shop in the grocery stores and opted to make and bake at home. So that still does use carbohydrates. I'm aware, but for making the changes, it was a positive change going from store-bought bakery, where if you read those labels, Many of them have chemicals in them, have soy products in them, and heavily sugar and sweetened, and just things that we didn't want to have anymore. So making them at home gave us a little bit more control, and it was we were able to modify some of those things and not just be done with them altogether. So that might be a solution for your family if just getting rid of things one day is not possible, because it is hard. I won't say it was ever easy, because we're still going through those changes. We're still confronted with those things even in our own home. So I know that the decisions are difficult to make, and I'm here to tell you that the Low Carb Family Program wants to support you through that. So, as we take a look into our kitchen and into our pantries or in our refrigerators, you might think, wow, that's a lot of stuff to get rid of. Um, maybe you can relate to this story where you have a lot of kids at home and you've taught them how to cook all these easy foods, but sometimes easy isn't always better. Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe pancakes were an issue or are an issue today in your house. So maybe identifying some of these in your own kitchen is going to be helpful. And maybe as a challenge, I would say, let's get into those pantries and the refrigerators and see, instead of just cold turkey getting rid of things and not having them in the house anymore, start with 5 things. So maybe you can go in there and identify and remove 5 items today, and that's just one step closer to getting rid of some of those extras that you just really don't need. And I would really like it if you would put those in the comments, just so um, others can see the things that you've tackled and gotten rid of, because it's an encouragement to someone else to see, hey, they threw away relish or they removed relish, and I can too. Or isn't that cool that they had those same items that I did? And it just gives us a feeling that we're just like everyone else, and we really are. And we're not here to center people out or the things you point out in your own refrigerator, but it's just a way of being accountable, I guess, and giving yourself a space to just identify and record those things, those changes that you're making. So take a minute and find those 5 things, and then tell us in the comments what those 5 things were. Okay? And we'll have a good, nice conversation along the way about that. So 5 things, everyone. 5 things. Do you like my little emoji? Man, I wish my hair was that short. So, moving on into our pantry, ahead of all of the items that we really want to get rid of, um, there has to be some thought and process. So the changes are going to be difficult. I am well aware. I've gone through them. And that's why I know how important they are to my family and how important these changes are going to be to your family. And we really want to be here to support not just you, not just your spouse, and not just your partner, but your entire family. So commit to the changes, number one. And then maybe set some goals, personal goals. Take a look at where you're at today, things that you want to improve on, things that you want to achieve. Write those down just for yourself. And then take it a step further and broaden your vision to include your family. Now, some of you may not have children. Maybe it's just you and your spouse or your partner. That's your family. So, what are your goals for the two of you? Maybe some of you have kids that are grown and they're no longer in the home, but sometimes you feed them or you go for dinner and you're asked to bring food. So, this extends out to whatever type of family that you happen to have. Set goals for that family, because it's one thing to want change for yourself, But it's another to start to implement changes that are really going to trickle down and affect in a positive way the rest of your family. And that's really what the basis of the low carb family. It's to see changes happen. I don't want to say from the top down, but from those in leadership or in care of others down to those people who need your care on a daily basis. So we really want to help support that. So after you've done those goal setting, open up your pantry, start to evaluate, start to look at things, start to read labels. And then, as that challenge I just asked you about or mentioned, get those 5 things, remove them, write them down, tell us about them. And, you know, if there's an abundance of food, we support our local community here. And if you have a food shelter or a food bank, or maybe your church or your community center where you can donate food, unopened food that you no longer wish to keep in your home, I say do it. Give it to those organizations, and because there's such a large group of people who do have food insecurity. So we don't want to make light of that by just saying, get rid of it. If it's possible to donate, I say do so. You'll feel much better about it. So ready to move on? And we're purging, purging, purging. So don't leave one behind. What does that really mean? Well, it means don't leave one behind. So going into the pantry, you'll might be surprised what you'll find when you take a deep look way into the back. So getting out of the habit of having things like this list in the cupboard was a big one for us, because not just because we have a large family, but it was part of our growing up to bake with our kids and bake with our families. So we've had to learn other things and other skills that didn't really require these items. But some of the items that we did identify to have removed from the cupboard were things like table salt, iodized salt. Replace that with pink Himalayan salt, with a Malden smoked salt, perhaps, um, lava salts, Redmond's real salt. All kinds of natural salts can be used. So we got rid of the table salt. White sugar, brown sugar, baking soda, icing sugar, oatmeal, um, peanuts. Peanuts are such a terrible inflammatory instigator. Um, we got rid of peanuts. And also, nuts of any kind can really be problematic when we're dealing with not just insulin resistance, but inflammation in the body. Um, I don't know about you, but going to the cupboard, I seldom can go there for just 5 almonds. Take 5 and leave. Um, Before I've eaten a few, I've turned myself around and I'm going back for 5 more or 10 more. So getting rid of those extras, peanuts had to be one of them. Jello, I don't know if that's still a thing in households, but it sure was in ours. But that had to go. And jams, cake mixes, bread, bagels, muffins, cornstarch, and ketchup. Ketchup has so much sugar in it. It's it's ridiculous. So those types of things, um, we emptied out of the pantry. So again, go through these things, go into your pantry, take a look, itemize things, give it away if you can, and then maybe tell us about it in the comments as well. Some things that you found in the cupboard that you could get rid of today. And out of that leads me to our reasons why. So many times people say, well, why did you make so many of these big choices? And why did you eliminate so many food groups? And why aren't you putting a bun on that burger? And why are you drinking Perrier? And why do you fast on certain days? And why don't you eat in restaurants like you used to? So for us, these are our reasons why. So I started to tell you about type 2 diabetes that was discovered in an emergency room with my husband. That was a big wake up call. 7 or 8 months later, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. That was another huge stop and take assessment of what we were doing concerning our health. So, health crisis really drove us to making these changes, and not just making the changes, but committing to what we had agreed to implement in our household. So, when days got tough, we just remembered, okay, these are the reasons why we're doing this. And then we had to take a look at our future. What kind of a future did we want to have? Now, we could be a part of life on the sidelines, watching it go by, sitting in chairs, um, and not being an active participant. Or we could do something about the current state of our health by making some changes with our diet, and then having the ability to now be active in life and be a part of life. So, along with 7 kids, now part of our family is grown and have families of their own. So, grandchildren are another part of life, which is a great part of life. But again, did what kind of activity level were we or are you able to commit to if your health is out of control? So, taking a look at your future is really going to take some hard looks for some people. And sometimes we don't want to take a look and see um, maybe some of the things that we've contributed to our health today. But I can tell you, once we've made those commitments and start making those changes and implementing them and then seeing them have results, it becomes very evident that it was worth it. All the changes were worth it. So that's another part of our reasoning and our family. You know, as we started to deal with our own health issues, we realized, hey, wait a minute, this wasn't just our problem. We see this in our family's health history. So having parents and grandparents and cousins who went through different types of cancers, who had heart disease, who had type 2 diabetes, and lived with obesity for the better part of their adult lives. So now we thought, okay, we can see the footprint ahead of us or behind us from those that have lived already. And now here we are in this time in our lives with these kids behind us. So it wasn't enough for us to get on track and make these decisions. We wanted to now have these be impactful in the rest of our family's lives. So when they turn 25, 35, 45, and 50, they aren't where we are today tackling some of these issues. So leading by example was and still is really important to us. And then, looking at our kids way back when they were small, there was always someone sick. Somebody was always sick in our house. And then if it wasn't one of our kids, it was one of us. And it just kept going in circles. And they were tired. They were cranky. So we needed some changes to happen. So these are our reasons why. And you're going to come up with your own. So you might say, okay, Carol Ann, these all sound really great and they've worked for your family, but no one in my house wants to do what I'm doing. Everyone seems to be marching to a different drum. So my best advice to you is be strong, stay focused. There will be challenges. There will be days where you'll question and wonder, is this going to have any kind of benefit? Or is this really going to move through the rest of my family? I say, hold tight. Changes will happen if you continue to lead by example. Remember the reasons why you're doing this. And then going back to that initial purge, where you you can't get rid of everything at once. It is a process. So you do have to make decisions, um, how to do this in a process way, in a in a systematic way, so your family doesn't feel like you've taken all these things away and now they don't have anything. For us, when we started to remove certain food groups like pasta, bread, rice, all those types of things, we needed to have a plan. Excuse me, we needed to have a plan that we didn't just restrict that food and not have a backup plan or not have a replacement for it. Because we as adults, as you well know, if you've told yourself or someone has said, okay, now you can no longer have, potatoes. Potatoes are off limits. And if you like potatoes, that's all you think about is when am I going to get that next potato? So, and it can happen with anything. And kids are the same way. If you take and remove a food, have something ready. So you're going to have to plan for this. This is your job. Have something there that you can replace it with, because nobody wants to have things removed and nothing put in its place. So tackle it slowly, systematically, be patient, but be strong and focused and make these changes and live by your own example. And soon they will begin to follow you, I promise. So I posted these, or I put these here because I wanted to show you a little bit about perseverance and patience. So I went through a period of time where I saw, myself, where I didn't want to be. I felt so much inflammation. I had gained, I don't know how much weight there in that picture, number one, probably 30 pounds. And I don't get on the scale often, so I'm really guessing at that. But it was about that. And I got really serious about simple time restricted eating. And I said, let's just focus on time restricted eating. We'll be really diligent about the meal times. We won't eat outside of those meal times. We'll be so um, diligent on lunch and dinner, and that's all. No extras, no snacks, and stuck with that. So the second photo is about 2 weeks later. Big difference. The smile, the eyes, the skin, everything is different. And then about 6 weeks after the second photo is Jeff and I in the bottom picture. And sorry, his head's cut off a bit, but that's okay. Um, Totally different. Skin has changed, eyes are bright, uh, big wide smile, all of those things. So, and again, I'm back to this bowler haircut because we're in lockdown, but that's okay. It'll all be fine. But I really wanted you to see that to persevere is being patient with yourself. And you may feel like you're alone for a while. And again, get involved in this community or another community where people understand and support you. It's so important. And that's really why we're here. We want you to know you're not alone. You're not the only one that is going through these things. And then setting yourself up for success. My number one failure, or somebody will be quick to say it wasn't a failure. My one fallback, or my one thing that constantly interrupts my clear thoughts when I'm in the grocery store. So maybe you can relate to this. You have a list. You know what's on your list. You go to the grocery store and you're, going through the deli, the produce section, wherever, and you leave the produce section, at least my grocery store, and now you're in the bake shop. I try to avoid that section and just go the other way. But so often my caretaker mommy brain says, "Oh, it's so rough at home. Kids are homeschooling and they're remote learning and they're under so much stress and they just need a break." And they would really know I love them if I brought home this box of cookies. Or they would really, really know that I'm looking out for them if I bring, XYZ home. And that's where I fail or I fall short of setting myself and my family up for success. So if you're the shopper, we have to be diligent about what we're bringing into the house. And this is still an ongoing, I won't say it's a struggle, but it's ongoing because I'm a human. My families are humans and you're human. And sometimes it's not just stress that causes us to eat a certain way. Cortisol, which helps implement that stress hormone and tells us to eat, can be ignited for any reason. I can be happy and cortisol goes up. I can be sad and my cortisol might go up. That stress, the body doesn't understand the difference. So setting myself up for success really has to be the plans, especially for shopping. So getting that pantry in condition that I can go in there and not be confronted with these choices now in my own house, I can keep them on the outside. So that's what I'm talking about by setting yourself up for success, and then trusting in the process, trusting in your plans, and being patient. We really, really have to be patient because nothing happens overnight. We may want to see results fast, but it's not going to happen overnight. In time. So as we've sat here now for 30 minutes, um, maybe you're thinking, okay, this is great. These are all great reasons, Carol Ann, and your family seems to have done just fantastic. What about me? So these are some things that maybe you'll look at in your own life as reasons why this is important or why these changes are going to be important, starting with you. And then from there, it can trickle down to your family. But maybe some issues are your mental focus. Maybe you wake up in the morning and you have this, mental fog and you're just, you can't sort things out and everything is kind of an issue or a problem. You need better sleep. Maybe your sleeping is all over the place. Maybe you go to bed too late, you get up too early, or maybe you are up several times in the night and your sleep just is interrupted. And if we've overindulged or are including heavy carbs or lots of carbohydrates in our diet, our sleep is really going to be affected in a negative way. So that could be your reason why these changes are going to be implemented. Mental clarity, that's another one. I'm on I think 44 hours of a fast right now, and my mental clarity is really, really sharp. So I'm able to stay on task. I'm able to sort and figure things out. So maybe that's an area that you would like to work on. Maybe you just don't feel that you're firing on all cylinders, so to speak. Heart issues, that's a really big one. A lot of clients that I talk to have heart issues, and lowering your carbohydrate intake is really going to help improve some of that inflammatory responses uh, to help deal with some of those issues. And type 2 diabetes, which we've talked about already today, that might be a factor. Maybe it doesn't affect you, but it may affect another in your household. So that could be a reason why. Or you may have a health crisis of your own. You may be in a health crisis right now today. Um, so that could be your reason why. Everyone is going to have a different reason why. So maybe take a look. Are you dealing with any of this right now, today? And if you are, reach out to me and share with me. I would be more than happy to talk with you and and just answer some questions and give you some encouragement. So from there, I really wanted to talk about, well, okay, how do we just kind of live a normal life and be with the rest of everyone else? And when celebrations come along, usually that's where people think, okay, now I made all these changes. I can't have these meals that I used to enjoy on my birthday. What about the birthday cake, Christmas, all of those types of things? So I always say we have to enjoy the celebrations. Don't skip over a celebration. If it's your birthday, someone in your household's birthday, you need to come together and celebrate that birthday. And then how can you do that without the guilt? So having a plan, planning ahead, you know when the birthdays roll around. So we always plan with maybe having some days of intermittent fasting leading up to a birthday and then doing some fasting after. But also just knowing that when that birthday rolls around, we're going to enjoy this meal. We plan ahead so there's no surprises and we enjoy those types of foods, even if it is a birthday cake. Now, remember in the beginning where I told you we threw away all those things and or we replaced them or we got rid of a lot of those pantry items. And when it came to artificial sweeteners and things like that, we just decided for our family it wasn't going to be the way to go. Now some of you may do just fine using artificial sweeteners, but for us, dealing with cancer and dealing with type 2 diabetes, it just wasn't an option. So we just eliminated it. And when it was time to have these special types of foods, we used real ingredients. But the key here, I think, about enjoying it without guilt is when the birthday falls, we knew, okay, we're going to enjoy this cake. But today isn't my birthday. So I'm not preparing to have cake today. You know what I'm saying? So enjoy the celebrations without making Wednesday one. Okay. So you don't have to miss out. And yes, you can have your cake and eat it too, but you do need to have a plan and avoid the guilt because I can tell you 100% if you make a plan and you stick to it, you can enjoy that day guilt free. So, some things that have helped us stay motivated, and they may be tips to help you stay motivated, are always to get your family involved. So, whether that be writing out lists for grocery shopping, helping in the kitchen, cleaning out the fridge, cleaning the pantry, knowing what types of foods are in your house and what it takes to make a meal really makes a difference in in just what's for dinner all the time. And having our kids involved in the kitchen sometimes is as simple as asking my daughter to write out a grocery list. She's really great at it. And I don't give her any limitations and I don't say don't include all the terrible foods. Just go through the fridge and the cupboard and take a look and see what do you think we need to put on the list for next week or for today. And I can tell you, I wish I had a copy of some of her grocery lists because they've all been great. And occasionally I'll see like, what is this? Or I will get her to fill out my Instacart and have our groceries delivered in total hope that when I push the go button, it's going to have all the things on it that we need. And sometimes some things show up here that weren't on the list, but all in all, she's really, really good at making those choices. So having them involved gives them food awareness and it really helps them understand what they're eating. Teach them to read labels. Those kids that are new to reading or early readers, they want to read everything. So if you have things that they can read, by all means, get them involved that way. Sometimes, when we're shopping, not so much now because we're still in a COVID lockdown, so I don't take the kids in and out of the grocery store a lot. I usually just go by myself, but sometimes I'll say, okay, go and grab this off the shelf, and they'll grab something else next to it and they'll take it down and they'll look at it and they'll look at me and they'll look at this and they'll look at me and then they'll put the item back. And I'm like, oh, well, what was that? And they'll say, well, the second item on the list had sugar in it, or it had 30 grams of carbs in it. And, I think that those are winning moments. I think that that's fantastic. And they sometimes make fun of it or don't always see the positive side, but it's getting through to them to read those labels and be aware of what's in there. And we talked a little bit about this earlier about giving options rather than restrictions. Really, really important. So if you're going to eliminate some foods, really give it some thought as to what you might replace it with. It's going to be in your favor in the end. And then remember your goals. That's going to be really important, that your goals for yourself and those goals that you set for your family, those are going to be things that remind you, this is why I made these decisions in the beginning. Because some days are really, really going to be difficult days, and you're going to need something more than just, I want to be 10 pounds lighter, to get you through. So reminding yourself what those goals are really, really going to be important. And then what's the after? So after months and years, now we're seeing the benefits in our own household. And some of that is what I just described, where our family now, they can make their own healthy choices. If left to make choices on their own, they can do it. So, I'll give you an example. I love an old-fashioned hamburger. I love them. I don't know why. I just do. But I've given up having them on a bun. I'll lettuce wrap them or dress them up and eat them with a fork and knife on a plate. But if we're out and our kids want a hamburger and it comes on a bun, it's no big deal. They can decide and make the choice. Yes, I'll have them on the bun, or no, I won't. But I can tell you there's been many times where after they've made the decision, they've regretted it. So they have more of a responsibility to their own health, and they know what these choices can do for them. They can see the benefits in their own life. So getting them to make their own choices is a great result. Overall wellness, everyone in the household sleeps much better, far less illness, motivated to be active, getting out, going for a walk, mental clarity, and personal awareness. Just be knowing where you're at, being kind and gracious to yourself, and not putting unrealistic expectations on myself is is a big one. So overall wellness has improved, and then the freedom. Now we can enjoy our our life rather than watching it, and that for us was a big one. I'm 53 now, and I've said this so many times that if I knew at 30 that I could feel like I do today, I probably, hopefully, would have made these choices then. But it took me a long time to get here and make those decisions. So now the freedom to enjoy life rather than see it go by is a really big part of the results for me. And so hopefully this isn't too much of uh, I don't want you to feel bad about where you are right now. I want you to feel supported, and but in some of these in-depth looks, we do have to take a look at some of those choices that we've made. And I can tell you, as a cancer patient, most people don't want to be told or realize that they had a responsibility to some of the happenings and some of the outcomes. And I know all cancers are not related to food. Mine was. And so I know that some of the choices that I had made maybe 15 years, 20 years earlier were all part of where I was today. So I take that seriously. And remembering why I started is always going to keep me in the forefront of choosing health. So take a look then. You might say, okay, now what do I do? We've heard all these great tips, and I feel kind of off the wagon or off track. So now what? So take a look, I guess, at where you are today, like right now at 4 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, where you're at in these choices and decisions. And then from there, take a look where you were last week. And then a month ago, where were you in all these decisions and making these choices a month ago? Last year, where were you when it was time to take a look at making these hard decisions and choices that will benefit and have an impact on better health. Do you see progress? That's a hard one. And, you know, we often are eager, but we seldom put one foot in front of the other and get moving. And a lot of times we just need a partner, an accountability person, someone to connect with who can walk us through. And that really is what the low carb family program is all about. It's about support. It's about coming alongside you and your family. It's about guiding you through whether it be intermittent fasting or changing your diet to a more low carb diet. It's all of those things and fusing them together, and how it can not only be a better or impactful to your health, but have really nice impact and really good benefits for the rest of your family. And that's our goal. Our goal is to see you not just survive your circumstance. I didn't want to just survive cancer. I wanted to thrive. And I feel like that's what we're doing. We're thriving at what we're doing rather than surviving. So with all of that, I really hope that this has been an encouragement to you, first of all, and that you've found a way to start identifying some of those areas in your own kitchen that might be your weakest link. And then look at those changes that you could commit to. Start setting goals. Look at your goals for your family. How can you lead by example? And then reach out for support. If you want to connect with us, I'm so happy to receive your email and take a look at anything that you've chosen for your 5 items today, your 5 purge items from your pantry or fridge. If you don't feel you want to put them in the comments, send me an email. I'm more than happy to hear from you. So Carol-Ann at thelowcarbfamily.com. You can follow us on Instagram if you like social media. You can leave comments there. You can leave me a message there. You can visit our website, www.thelowcarbfamily.com. Lots of ways to connect. And then in this Facebook group, which has really been an awesome encouragement to me and to others. So, yeah, I think with that, I would just say, stay connected, reach out when you need the help, share with others that you know in your community and your family and your friends who would benefit from this video. And in the future, watch for more videos where we're really going to talk about some intermittent fasting. We'll probably get doing some of that together, and reach out when you need it, because that's what we're here for. So take care, and it was great being here with you today.